Hey guys, my name is Shreyas and welcome to Simple Biology. Today we're going to be looking at the rise and fall of populations and species and how that has to do with evolution. So, the rise and fall of major groups of organisms have shaped the history of life. For example, as we talked about in the previous video, we saw how the introduction of oxygen due to photosynthetic organisms killed off many early species in Earth's history, and now that's why all organisms we see today are aerobic for the most part. So these big rise and fall major events are very important to the history of life, and it's important to know them in order to understand evolution. Rise and fall rates are often related to speciation and extinction rates, so that's why we're studying them. And there can be a rise in a new group of species when the amount of births are greater than those lost to extinction. Okay. That's kind of just logic there. So there's three main rise and fall factors. The three we're going to be studying are plate tectonics, mass extinctions, and adaptive radiations. Let's first talk about plate tectonics. Now, we probably heard about plate tectonics in middle school, but let's go ahead and review them. Plate tectonics is the theory that Earth's continents are part of these big plates on the Earth's crust that float on the upper part of the mantle. The mantle is you can think of it as the molten lava that's underneath the Earth's crust. Earth's crust is just the land. The outer layer of these plates is known as the lithosphere. So it's the lithosphere, and underneath that is the mantle. The movement of these plates can result in earthquakes and volcanoes. Continental drift is when movements in the mantle can cause these tectonic plates to move over time, which then causes the continents that we know today to start to shift. Typically, we find mountains and islands at these boundaries between the plates. Now, there's three patterns of continental drift. The first pattern is when plates move away from each other. This can be seen between the North American and the Eurasian plate, and that's why we have islands like Hawaii. There's also plates when plates can slide past each other. This usually forms regions where earthquakes are common. You can see that at the San Andreas Fault in California. You can go look up the picture. The fault is absolutely amazing. You can just see this huge crack in the land. And the plates can also collide into each other and can form mountains along these plate boundaries. An example of that is the Indian plate colliding with the Eurasian plate, forming the Himalayan mountains. Now, what does this have to do with evolution? Continental drift can alter the habitat in which an organism lives. Obviously, if you see this plates just starting to move, then the habitat's going to change because everything's just shifting. It can also alter the physical environment and climate. This can result in extinctions because, if a plate starts moving up into a cold area, the organisms can start to die because it starts to get too cold. And it can also create opportunities, Maybe there's an organism which has thick fur, which didn't survive in the hot environment, but with this the moving of plate tectonics causing this to move into a cold area, it survives better. That's an example. When we think of continental drift, you probably already had this in the back of your head. It can promote allopatric speciation. Just think about like when continents break apart, these connected regions start to be isolated. We saw this in a few videos when we talked about Pangea and how the biogeography and how the continents start to split apart, causing areas of populations to divide. That's obviously going to cause allopatric speciation because it's isolating the populations. And it can explain the geographic distribution of extinct and present-day organisms if you study continental drift. Now, the second thing that we talk about when we talk about rise and fall events is mass extinctions. So, mass extinctions are just these huge extinctions where many species just get wiped out from the Earth. Fossils can show how majority species have become extinct. Obviously, we've seen this in the strata in the first video, and how you can look at fossils and then eventually they just stop showing up in strata, meaning that organism has gone extinct. A species can be extinct for many reasons. The habitat gets destroyed, a change in environment can wipe out a species, temperature change also can wipe out a species. We're seeing this today with global warming and species getting extinct every day. It's pretty terrible, but that's an example of a temperature change which is causing a mass extinction. The origin of one species can be the death of another species. So what this means is if one species gets wiped out, it can really help form new species. When you think of mass extinctions, we think about the dinosaurs. Back in the age of the dinosaurs, we had a bunch of big, huge reptile organisms. They're all reptiles, dinosaurs. But after they're wiped out, mammals start to thrive. So that's an example of how the origin of one species can be the death of another species. Mass extinction, again, is when large numbers of a species become extinct worldwide. In the past 500 million years, there's been 5 major mass extinction events, and the 2 most major mass extinction events have caused the greatest change in the history of life. First, those two are the Permian mass extinction and the Cretaceous mass extinction. Let's go ahead and talk about both of these. The Permian mass extinction was severely affected both aquatic and terrestrial life, so both life on land and in water. It affected about, according to scientists, 96 of marine animal species. 8 out of 27 land insects were completely wiped out. It occurred due to extreme episodes of volcanic eruptions. The volcanic eruptions produced enough carbon dioxide to warm the global climate, just like the greenhouse gas effect, and it's just trapping the sun's heat and caused the climate to change, as well as ocean acidification, carbon dioxide going into water, creating carbonic acid, which would really mess up the water and completely change the environment here. So that's the first mass extinction event that you need to know. Second one is the Cretaceous mass extinction event. It occurred more than 65 million years ago. This is the one that I just mentioned before with the dinosaurs. It removed more than 50% of all marine species. It's known for causing the extinction of the dinosaurs. Researchers have believed this extinction was caused because of a thin piece of clay called iridium. Iridium is very rare on Earth, but very common in objects that fly towards Earth, meteorites, large comets, clouds, asteroids. So that obviously is why most scientists think that the Cretaceous mass extinction was probably because a huge asteroid collided with Earth. And researchers believe that this clay is a debris of a large comet or asteroid that collided with Earth, causing this mass extinction event. Now, one of the consequences of mass extinctions, they can cause an ecological community to disappear. They take many, many years to recover the diversity of life, and whenever during this recovery process after mass extinction, a lot of things are going to change. It took more than 100 million years for marine families to recover after the Permian mass extinction. 96% of them just being eradicated. It's pretty big. Can affect the organisms living in the ecological communities, and then mass extinctions can result in what we call adaptive radiation, which we're going to look at now. Adaptive radiation is a period of evolutionary change in which organisms form new species whose adaptations allow them to fill different ecological roles. So whenever you have mass extinction events, a lot of organisms get wiped out, and then if you look at the environment, there's new roles. So let's say, like in Africa, you can have like the lion, which preys on everything else, and then there's the deer, and then there's the grass, which the deer feed on, right? So let's say we have a mass extinction event, and it wipes out all the lions. So now other predators can come about, and they can start feeding on the deer. So that's basically what adaptive radiation is. It's basically organisms coming and filling in the roles of previous organisms which have been wiped out from mass extinctions. They occurred on a large scale after these 5 mass extinctions that we talked about a little earlier. Survivors of the mass extinction would adapt to the remaining ecological niches, or these ecological roles. And it's common among organisms that face little competition from other species. There's 2 types of adaptive radiations. The first one is a worldwide adaptive radiation. This is when adaptive radiations that occur on broad geographic areas around the world. For example, the extinction of dinosaurs resulted in expansion of mammals, I mentioned that a little earlier, to fill the ecological roles which were occupied by dinosaurs. So basically all the roles which the dinosaurs did in the population, all the predators and stuff, now the mammals could have taken them over, and that's why we see mammals today. There's also regional adaptive radiations, and these are adaptive radiations that occur over limited geographic areas, and it occurs when organisms move to a location with little competition. Alright, that's it for Rise and Fall. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to have a nice recap video where we go over everything in evolution really quickly, just as a good review before you take your test. But that's it for now. Rise and fall of populations is as simple as that.